Unshelling Medicine Podcast. Healthcare in the language we understand.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Today, I have the pleasure of having Mr. Raj Khedun with me. Raj is a fitness, performance, and personal coach. Also, the inventor of the 3-3 metaverse breathing method. Hi, Raj. How
Hi,
are you?
Donsit. Well, nice to be on your podcast. I really appreciate it. Hope you're having a wonderful day.
Thank you for being here. Absolutely. It's going to be a great day after we're done talking. I feel it. So
Awesome.
I'm grateful for you being here. And right off the rip, the 3-3 metaverse breathing method. What is that?
Well, to tell you a bit about that, give you a bit of a backstory. I think that would help. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been a practicing yogi for the last 25 to 30 years. So in my journey, along the journey, I found out so many interesting, amazing insights that probably most people never come across in their entire life, simply because it's not taught in the school system, right? So it's exciting. The learning curve can be significant. I'll say that. But in terms of what it does for you as a human being, I think it's a real game-changing kind of knowledge that you live by. So I studied the physical yoga postures, which, people know about all over the world: downward dog, upward dog, all different types of, sun salutations and this and that. And they're great. They're fantastic. They help you stay fit, develop muscle tone, flexibility, and all those wonderful things. But there's a lot more to yoga than just that. So the real side of yoga comes when you start studying the breath. Like, people take the breath for granted. Oh, I started breathing when I was a baby, when I popped out of my mother's belly. Yeah. And I breathe automatically. Yes, you breathe automatically. Yes. But what are you actually breathing? Do you actually know? Most people say from the school system that you go to school and they tell you it's 21% oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and so on. But that's far from the truth. That's only a tiny part of it. Right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The real truth is this. What we're breathing, which is surrounding us all the time, 24/7, is light, electricity, and magnetism. If you think about it carefully, you'll say, I can live for 40 days without food. I can live for 4 days without water. But I can't live for more than 4 minutes without breath or breathing. So if breath is the most important fuel for a human being, why isn't it discussed more? Why isn't it taught more in the school system?
Maybe we're not aware of how important it is.
We've been around for centuries. How can we still not know?
I'm trying to make excuses, Raj.
Still not know how important it is? How many decades, how many generations have come and gone, and they still don't know how important it is? How can that be?
I think there's a disconnect.
That's very true. And I like the fact that you're open to have these kinds of rants and kind of go outside the box and get a bit engaged and really follow the vibe, and I think that's important as well, because we need to shake up some of the old ways of thinking to make way for the new sort of coming millennia of mental technologies that are on the horizon. If you don't do that, you're really not fulfilling yourself as a human being. You need to learn to expand your mind, your consciousness, and your energy.
Energy. When you talked about the electricity, the one thing that came to mind was energy, currency.
Correct.
Right?
Currency. A C of a current.
Current. Yes.
Exactly. Myron Golden, I love Myron Golden on YouTube. He's just exploding as a biblical businessman, preacher. He talks about currency as well. Talking about, money, energy. It's all a form of energy that helps you to accomplish things, whether physically or buy furniture or move house or take a holiday or to buy your kids a university education, whatever it is. Money is currency. It's an energy. And if you don't know how energy works in your body, you're missing out big time. So I think, especially post-pandemic, people are beginning to get a bit jaded with the medical system and prescriptions and big pharma and what doctors tell you can do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I think people are fed up of it. They're looking for more easier or more holistic ways to heal and recover rather than just rely on what doctors say you can or cannot do.
So do you think the pandemic was like a pivotal point with some level of awakening where people were exposed to turning inward and understanding the power that they have within to balance the energies in their body? Do you think that the pandemic did
Yes,
that?
to a certain extent. For some people, they could sense that there's big change on the way. For other people who are resisting change, they probably got the rough end of the stick. There are some people who today even resist change because they're clinging to old, outworn ideas that are not serving neither themselves nor the world nor humanity as a whole. So take your pick. Do you want to learn and engage your mind in higher, bigger, more enlightened, progressive ideas, or do you want to stay stuck in the past because of fear? So we've come to this critical point in evolution where we're being presented with new ideas that are so huge and so life transforming that luckily there are people like I didn't know the pandemic was going to happen 25 years ago, but I was still studying yoga very, very passionately. So when I look back, I realized that, this is why these things have to be known so you can help people make a transition to a higher stage of life and consciousness. Whenever there's change in the universe or in society or in a political system or an educational system or medical system, there's always chaos before change settles in and everyone moves on that upward trajectory. There's always chaos. There's always a storm before change is implemented. But then it's like the internet. People at first are like, internet, computers, like, nah, you got to go to libraries. You got to go physically to a place. You can't be on a computer. But now look what's happened. Everybody's on their computer.
We have it
Have
on our
it on your
phones.
smartphone. Everything, you can do Zoom conference calls. I do a lot of coaching on my smartphone. WhatsApp, I'm on my WhatsApp every single day, all day, every day on WhatsApp. But I'm not a slave to the phone. I'm just saying it's a very useful tool.
Absolutely.
So these changes are coming whether we like it or not.
Buckle up, buckle up. So, when we talk of consciousness and awareness, right? It sounds so foreign to a lot of people. It sounds very, a word that I use is like a wooerization of life. Like, is this thing that is not tangible, right? And people have a hard time wrapping their minds around this so-called awareness or so-called awakening or so-called a transformation in their thinking and how they feel. So, and these are the people that you mentioned, some within the categories of resistance, right? So what is as a lifelong yogi, what is your way of explaining what this is to somebody who may be resistant to understanding or even knowing what this is?
This is a fantastic question. And I don't know how deep you want to go on this, but
Oh, let's go. Right,
okay,
right here.
you asked for it. I'm not, it's no holds barred. I'm going all in now. Okay. The thing is, as you'll see, because we're bringing something new to the world and we really want to help humanity to help them transition to this new phase of awareness and consciousness. We knew, I think everybody as a soul deep down knows that changes are coming, that improvements are coming, that you cannot remain small. You cannot remain contracted in the past. You cannot. You have to continue to evolve and expand. That's part of the journey of every human being. whether you believe in a higher power or not, the changes are happening anyway, whether you believe it or you don't believe it, right? So luckily, over the years, because I've worked as a women's relationships coach for 15 years, and there's no situation or case that I probably haven't dealt with. Every crazy, extreme, emotionally confronting relationship scenario you can imagine, I've come across it. And I've had to coach it and coach women through that process, whether it is difficult for some, more difficult for others, more extreme for others, or not so difficult for certain women who have adapted to change successfully.
Right.
There's trauma issues, there's past child issues, all kinds of abuse issues and everything. That a lot of people, they carry that with them in the future, into their future. So to answer your question, to kind of dial it in a little bit, humanity is moving towards expansion. That's what it is. Expansion. And it also involves the word leverage. So what is leverage? Leverage means doing small things and getting big results. Right? Combining ideas for a bigger and better result.
So, question for you, Raj. Sorry to interrupt your thought there. We're moving towards expansion. However, there's certain things that are happening in the world that do not seem to be benefiting all of humanity. So with this outlook and what we see with our physical eyes in the here and now, how can a person believe in this expansion that will bring enlightenment?
Well, if you look back to medicine, or you look back to technology, or you look back at the ages that we've been through, the industrial age, the communication age, and the internet age, now we've reached a phase where people are concerned about quality of service. Not just about doing it quickly, but doing it with a smile on your face, doing it with joy, doing it with positive emotions. No one wants to go through a day. If you think about it carefully, it makes perfect sense. As human beings, we're supposed to enjoy our lives. We're supposed to overcome challenges, yes. We're supposed to understand and gather wisdom, yes. These things help us get stronger and stronger in our own evolution, right? We're always supposed to be improving. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or you don't. That's a fact. We all have to make an effort mentally, physically, spiritually to be moving on an upward trajectory. Even if it's only slowly and bit by bit every day, that's enough. So I agree with you. There are a lot of seeming contradictions in the world, in society, in humanity, and there are a lot of systems, perhaps politically or education-wise or medically, that do not serve humanity. Because you've got individuals who are holding the reins of control on policy.
Right.
And as long as they're in power, certain changes that could be happening are not happening. So this is where the push and pull struggle comes in. And the good news is that whether you believe it or not, think about who created the human body. Did you create your own brain? Did you create your bones? Did you create your spleen or your heart or your lungs? I know I didn't do that. I'm not smart enough to create that, right? I did not make this planet. I know I was not smart enough to do that. So when I think about it, I say, hang on a minute. There's an intelligence supremely higher than mine that did all this. It wasn't me. I can tell you 100%, 1,000%, I did not do it. Right? You could probably put your hand on your heart and say, oh yeah, actually, I didn't do that either. Right? Mm-hmm. So whatever that intelligence is, call it God, call it Buddha, call it the universe, call it Christ, whatever you want to call it, they obviously knows what to do and where we're going and why. So once you understand these things from, an analytical point of view, as well as if you have a belief point of view as well, you don't just believe what you see with your eyes. You believe what you see happening in your mind and how things are evolving for the betterment of everybody. That's the positive way to see things. So we each have a responsibility to usher in something new, something positive, something that's helpful to more and more people. I think every human being has that responsibility. And usually as children, we have a dream, we have a vision, we want to become president, or we want to become an astronaut, or we want to do something amazing. But somehow, when we get stuck in the system, it kind of trains that vision out of you. So it's no longer a possibility. And so you imbibe all these ideas, which force you to become a consumer in society rather than a producer. So you have debt, you have student loan, you have marriage, you have divorce, you have endless problem after problem until you reach the grave and you're dead, right? No one teaches you how to escape the matrix. But luckily, if you look on YouTube, there are forward thinkers who are coming out, who are explaining things like Greg Braden, like Bruce Lipton. These are kind of metaphysician scientists who worked for all the top universities in America. And they're coming out of it and saying, no, that's not it. When you think about how medical students are trained, what curriculum are they given, and who pays for that curriculum to be installed in the kids' or students' minds, right? Because I know I've spoken to a lot of doctors, and I still talk to doctors all the time. And a lot of them say they could be in their 50s and 60s and say, you know what? I don't feel I really did my patients much good. And I'll say, why do you say that? And they'll say, well, I was forced to do things that I felt in my heart and my soul were not really the best things for my patients, but I had to do them because I'm part of this system. And I say, if you could dial it back and do it the way you wanted with the wisdom you have now, what would you change? They'll go, oh, everything.
True.
So we each have to examine these systems: education, healthcare, politics, religion. We all have to come to our own understanding of these things.
So you talked about a mindset and kind of having like a collective positivity about where we're headed, right? I asked a question about the people that are resistant to change. And now my question is going to be, we're going to come back to this group of people, but my question is now directed at people who are doing their absolute best and their bit to effect positive change in the world. Is it your position that these people seek out like-minded people? Because it can be lonely. This journey can be lonely, right? The journey of, awareness and opening your mind and seeing things beyond what is traditional can be lonely because not everybody's going to come on this journey or on this journey with you at the same time. Just for somebody to not get derailed from the enlightenment, is it your position that it is important for somebody to seek out community of people or a person on this journey as well? Or is it better you travel the road alone and then find your, community?
That's a great question. That is a fantastic question. And I have an answer for you as well, because I've studied this and wondered about this very same thing myself for years. So you can go both ways. You can go by yourself if you feel like that's easier or quicker, or you need to be able to process things in your own way, by yourself, independent of your family's opinions, or independent of your friends' opinions, or even your peers' opinions. You could be a medical doctor and you might disagree with what your peers are holding to. So you need to cleanse your thought process, and it takes time. You might want to do that by yourself. Or what's a smart thing to do is to alliance yourself with groups or tribes or communities that are on the same page with the similar ideas and the similar ideals. Then if it's run properly and those people are dedicated and committed, then yes, you'll get nourished, you'll get supported, and you'll be able to give nourishment and support to others as well. I think that's the ideal. And luckily, we also have a community. I've actually built a community for exactly this. It's called Avatar DNA. And basically what it does is helps everyone find their own place in the world, in whatever vocation or whatever their dream vocation may be, and help you fulfill that role as an expansion and extension of yourself, and also help humanity in some way. So so whether you want to be a doctor or a teacher or a musician or a parent, or be the best parent you can, or be a business person, or become a billionaire entrepreneur, it's the same, because you just, it's all about mindset. So we actually have a community for that.
We will include everything Avatar DNA in the show notes. Going back to the breathing method, we talked about breath, the importance of breath. We've been doing it since day one. We're still doing it. It's essential to living, is essential to life. However, most of us do it, I don't want to say wrong, but we do it in a way that we don't get the optimal benefit from breathing. Okay. So then let's delve into your method, right? The 333 method, right? Metaphysics.
Metaverse.
Metaverse. I knew I was missing something. Metaverse. The metaverse breathing method. So let's delve into that. What brought you here to first identifying that there was a need for it, and second, coming up with it and how it is used?
Again, great questions. It opens up vast conversation and discussion, really, because everybody can relate to the breath, because everybody does it, whether consciously or unconsciously, whether you hold your breath or whether you have, panic attacks or whatever, you have a relationship with your breath, period. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
So that tells us, hang on. So there is this energy fuel, and it's supposed to be used or utilized or optimized in a certain way so you can benefit from it, right? But when we go back again to the school system, it doesn't teach you these things. So it comes up, it's down to individuals or teachers or pioneers to kind of encourage people to explore themselves and what they're really capable of doing. So this method was born out of seeing my clients struggle way too much with relationships, women clients who are struggling with men in terms of understanding men, social anxiety, feeling inadequate, so low self-esteem, letting the man take the upper hand all the time, and not really being able to reciprocate, not being able to lay your boundaries, and feeling nervous because you want to have a family, you don't want to upset the guy because you're in your late 30s, you want to have a family, and all these dynamics come into it, right?
Isn't that amazing? What we're talking about, women's lives revolving around men. That is so amazing. Amazing. But go on.
It's all changing now, especially in the Western societies, where they're trying to find a way to say, I don't want to do what my mother did because it was the male dominance idea, but how do we not go too extreme where it's all about the women dominating men now? It should be ideally harmonious, where everyone feels good, everyone feels listened to, everyone is valued, and everyone who brings something positive and constructive to the table is as valuable and valid as anyone else. That's how I'm able to reconcile relationship problems and be the peacemaker in the situation. Because for me, if you're in a family and the husband thinks like this and the woman, the wife thinks like this, and they're opposites, it's very complicated. Doesn't make for a pleasant, harmonious family or home life for themselves or the kids if they have kids. So this method, I originated it. I was already working on it for years before the pandemic anyway. And then when women were troubled with stress and anxiety, insomnia, depression, and all these things because They don't know how to interact with men. They feel like they're being rejected by men. They feel like their confidence is taking a knock. Their self-esteem is taking a knock. Even women who are in high places, like a lawyer or a doctor or a therapist, a psychotherapist, or even in politics, for whatever reason, when a man says no or doesn't allow something to happen, a woman can often crumble no matter what her social status is. So these deep-seated feelings or sense of identity of not being enough or not being supportive enough or not being valuable enough, you could have great social status, but still within, you still have these inadequacies in the background. So I developed this method to help women to control stress and anxiety and reduce it by 50 to 60% in 3 minutes or less. The amazing thing about this method is that it also helps both women and men who have insomnia.
I was waiting for that part, but okay.
Yeah. Insomnia is a big problem in the world today. 770 million people globally have insomnia. That's a tenth of the world's population. In America alone, lost revenues from insomnia amount to, I think, 50 to 60 to even 70 billion dollars per year in lost revenues.
In what way? People not going to work because they're not functioning?
Correct.
In what ways?
Exactly. If you don't sleep well, you're not fully recharged. And when you're not fully recharged and you're not cognitively aware, your performance drops in everything, whether it's your interpersonal skills with other colleagues at work, whether it's your own husband or kids at home, or wife and kids at home, whether it's your ability to cross a road safely. If your energy is impaired or compromised, you could have an accident simply because you weren't paying attention. If you don't look in both sides of the street, for example, and you weren't paying attention and a car hit you, and you'll say, well, I was healthy, but the only problem was you didn't have enough energy to pay attention to what was happening at that moment. Right? So that's why energy and sleep are so critical.
So is there any one thing that you can pinpoint to being, I know it's not just a single factor that contributes to insomnia that we're seeing around the world, but is there something that predominantly stands out as a major contributing factor to people not being able to sleep?
Definitely, stress and anxiety from unresolved conflict, uncertainty, feeling of being powerless or out of control, not having confidence over your own future, lacking self-control over the things you do in your day-to-day life. For example, if you drink too much or you eat processed foods or you eat unhealthily, you don't exercise, these habits compound quickly. And if they're all stacked against you, your sleep is not going to be so heavenly, shall we say. You're worrying about things. You get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you start scrolling on TikTok on your smartphone, watching silly cat videos or whatever. They are. I agree with you. They are funny. But if it's all out of proportion to the work you're putting into yourself, then it gets a bit meaningless.
True. True. All right. Is there any parts of the world that is more affected than the other? Like in the United States, we have daylight savings time. The clock goes backwards in the winter and forward in the spring, right? So during the winter months, we have shorter days and longer nights, right? And in the summer months, we have longer daytime and shorter nights. And the winter season is one that a lot of people are diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder. That came out. Okay. So So people a lot of diagnosis of seasonal affective disorder peaks during the winter months, right? So is there like climate, weather related cause or geographical spike in, say, insomnia or anxiety and depression that you've been able to identify in your line of work?
Those things can play a factor to a certain extent. But what we find is that if you sleep deeply on a regular basis and you're able to recharge your energy, because that's a deep and mysterious concept by itself. If you can understand, where does energy come from, right? You say, when I sleep and I wake up and I'm full of energy, how did that happen, actually? It's a deep, mysterious subject. So what we find is that, yes, there are environmental factors, SAD, and these things can be there. However, if you were fully recharged and refreshed because you slept well, these factors will be less of a problem because you've got to the root core of your own energy. So these kind of circumambient or, smaller issues, they become negligible or very manageable. But it's like Stephen Covey, the author of the great book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He gave the illustration of putting in your jar of priorities, put the big rocks first. Don't put the sand first and then try to put the big rocks on top, because you make a mess of it, right? You can't, put the lid on and close it properly if the sand is at first and the rocks are on top of the sand. You've got to put the big rocks in first, which are your main priorities, like sleep, energy, diet, exercise, and so on. Then you can put the small pebbles and the small rocks and the sand and water on top of that, and then close the jar, and everything will hold well. But if you put the lesser priorities first, you're not going to be able to put the big rocks of your major priorities in. They won't fit.
Okay. So that's great. Basically, the lesson here is focus on balancing yourself, and then everything around will fall into place.
Yep.
Okay. So with that, career. We live in a very industrialized and robotic society, or capital society, I should add as well, where a lot of our corporate careers are not stress-free, right? So you talked about doctors, you talked about healthcare workers, even bankers, engineers, the people that have stockbrokers, very high stress careers. So how does that also factor into staying out of balance frequently?
That's a good question. It all comes back around to how breath, energy, cognition, being able to boost and recharge yourself and handle stress. This all comes back to the same point again. And it's interesting because the 3-3 method, and I'll explain how this all ties in together. What it does, when you do the 3-3 method, which we're teaching kids from as young as 5 and adults up to 85 years old, it works for everyone without fail. If you're a breathing being and you breathe this oxygen or life energy which is around us, if you are breathing, this will work for you. If you have a brain, this will work for you. Yeah. Just check, double check. Sometimes when I have these big, long conversations and debates with people, it's like, am I using my brain or am I using my mind? Because my mind is bigger than my brain. So my brain should be fried by now because I'm dealing with such huge cosmological concepts. Like, it's getting a bit crazy. But at the end of the debate, I'm still standing. I'm still there. And everyone else has gone to sleep, right? So the amazing thing about this metaverse breathing method, the 3-3, is that it unlocks endorphins from your brain, which help to reduce pain. It also unlocks dopamine and serotonin, which are natural feel-good hormones from your brain as well. And because it does all of that, plus it activates the vagus nerve, which is behind your throat, behind your face, and in your guts, right? It switches on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and digest. The reason why people are so stressed, anxious, depression, insomnia, and so on is because they're always in freeze, fight, flight mode, which is sympathetic nervous system. Out, go, 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 stress, 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 worry, 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 endlessly, right? And they do that for most of their lives, especially in the Western world.
Yeah.
Because they don't take time to meditate. They've never been taught that meditation and breathing is so, so important to you. So they never do it. So they constantly remain in the sympathetic nervous system, stressing, worrying, being depressed, turning to substance abuse, taking it out on the family, taking it out on the wife, taking it out on the kids, taking it out on friends, employees, making bad decisions, which ultimately rebound back on you, right? Because whatever you put out comes back. So if you put out negative energy is going to come back to you. If you put out positive energy is going to come back to you. But if you don't know how to switch into your parasympathetic nervous system, then that side of life doesn't even exist for you.
Right.
So, yeah.
You touched on a lot of things, but it goes back to education, which is, it makes me very happy when I hear anything about education. We talked about these are not taught in schools. I think we have become a society that is over dependent on the school system to teach our children a lot of skills that we should, as parents, teach at home. So if the school system is not teaching a child how to regulate their emotions or regulate their anxiety, because school can be an anxiety provoking environment, right? Depending on if this child is having a good time at school, has friends, or have people who pick on them, right? So just to add to that, when somebody takes out their unmanaged stress on anybody around them, usually the family is the first point of impact,
Yeah.
right? Unfortunately, that is the favorite, punching bag. The wife, the husband, the children, the dog, the cat, you name it. In a society where we're slowly disconnecting from consciousness, if you are, I would say to anybody who's listening, if you're on a journey of enlightening yourself, whether you work with Raj or anybody, or you're going on your own journey, it is important to also share that with your loved ones, people around you, right? Your family, because it begins at home. As parents, if you also have children, it is important to bring them into these meditative practices, breathing exercises, as we're about to learn from Raj very soon, because if the school is not teaching them, it's your responsibility as a parent to teach your child, to show them, and it will work out in the long run. That is just my input on that. And you're smiling, Raj.
I am, because I'll tell you why. Because this is not only a fantastic conversation in terms of its important gravity. We can have fun. It's entertaining. It's also incredible, and it's amazing because you're also a nurse yourself. And when you try the method with us in a moment, you can compare it to all of your other wellness practices and see the contrast and the difference for yourself, right? And then you'll say to yourself, as a lot, the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, have tried this. And there's a testimonial on our website, keepfitkingdom.com. And you can go and read it, and you'll say, oh, hang on. So if the National Health Service have said it's amazing, then why aren't you doing it with more and more people from, your GPs, referrals, surgeries, and in the hospitals? Why aren't you doing it if you say it's fantastic? So it's one of those things where, like CBD and marijuana, now it's being more legalized and more allowed as a pain regulation substance. So in the same way, they have to spend 10 years, 20 years trying to test this and test the science of this and that. But in the meantime, people are suffering.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't think a 60-year-old is going to wait 25 years for them to finish their tests and then say, oh, I know you're kind of really poorly now, you're 85, but we've finally got the approval. Now you can start doing it. They're going to be like, why didn't you tell me 25 years ago? If it already existed, why are you telling me now? It's too late.
that thing with healthcare. That is why healthcare recognizes, this is why it is important for me to have this platform. Healthcare recognizes the mind-body connection. Healthcare recognizes energy healing. More and more practitioners, like the doctors in their 60s that you talk to, that this was not a thing when they were practicing and they wish they could go back and change everything. Is that more and more doctors are now incorporating these into their practice, and also encouraging their patients who are embarking on this healing journey, right, in collaboration to their modern medicine treatment, right? So I'm saying this to say, healthcare is a very evidence-based practice career. We have to make sure it works. We have to, every screw must be tightened, every gap must be filled. It is annoying. It is annoying. It delays things. I get it. But I also understand it on the other side, where litigation is a thing, where unfavorable outcome is something that we completely don't want. And sometimes, unfortunately, until that treatment is out on the market and being used, there's no way of determining whether it works or it doesn't work, right? So we spend all this time trying to avoid all these unfavorable outcomes. However, we only find them when it's actually used a lot, right? Because when we're testing and we're clinical trying and all this extra stuff we do, not every subset of people are represented.
That's right.
Okay, so how would this representation happen? It only happens when it is go-to-market ready, right? And until then, we don't get to see everything. We have a long way to go in healthcare. It's part of my life's work to continue to advocate and to work with providers and pharmaceuticals who are willing to make sure that their clinical trial processes are, one, very transparent, right? Because there's been medical atrocities for decades, and also to make sure there's a representation there, because there's a lot of good that we've come up with healing and finding out a lot of medical breakthroughs, right, on that modern medicine side. But the one thing that we neglect all the time is nature's way of naturally healing us, that we don't have to have an overdependence on our new shiny toys and inventions. And there's less balance, there's room for both to coexist. There's absolute room for both to coexist, and for us to just do good by us, because it affects all of us.
Absolutely. Such a
I took your stove. You can have it back.
No, that's absolutely, a great thing. And it's been that way for decades, where people can choose. They say, okay, I found this thing out and it's got lots of feedback. Like, let me investigate this. Let me explore it for myself. And luckily, I'm also the same. I'm very scientific in my approach to everything, because I like to test theories and see, why does it work? Why doesn't it work? Could it be improved? Give me the template. Give me the structure. Give me the blueprint. I want to see it. I'm also very scientific. I've been, spending 25, 30 years studying yoga. I don't want to look back and say, oh, I wasted my time. Right? Who wants to die and say, oh, I completely wasted my life? Obviously.
Well, you had the strong mind to go off on your own. You do know, most people, I will speak from an African heritage perspective, right? Nigerian, to be exact. Most people go into careers because of family, right? Families want you to have those secure careers. You have the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, the engineers, and some people are not completely happy with their career choices, and then compound it with having to toe within the lines of policy because you belong to a system, right? And because your license is governed by these practices, which must stay within these lines, right? So I can see a lot of unhappiness. Not everybody has the mind that you have, Raj, to just say, you know what? This is what I want my life purpose to be, and I am going to learn this practice for the next 25, 30, 40, 50 years, right? Because some people really had in their mind to do something else. However, they decided to out of respect for family, out of love for family, out of statue or whatever it is, decide to follow a career. And even with that career, they're not even able to like practice that the way they want to
So well
practice.
said. That is so well said. Because a lot of people would be, they try to talk about those things, but because of the way where they're sitting, they feel like I'm
Right.
not happy that I'm within the lines. I wish I could go outside the lines. What is actually out there? I never had the chance to explore that. But interestingly enough, going back to your point about everything being watertight and properly fixed and not unbreakable, basically unbreakable system.
Right.
The system that we devised, there's never been any negative reports to come out from it. None at all. And the reason is simply this: if you breathe, then your breath works. Yes. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So all we're doing, in effect, is we're making a very subtle but powerful shift, leveraging the powers of hormones you already have in your own brain and activating the vagus nerve, which is something which people are just now beginning to really discover and understand. How does it work? How does it influence a person's mood and endocrine system and attitudes and all those things? This method, all it does is it's a very clever, easy, simple, elegant way to leverage your powers that you already have. But until now, it's never been designed and engineered in a way that makes it accessible for pretty much every man and woman and child on the planet. But because I think that way, I'm always thinking of universal truths. Like, what's the difference between you and me? You could say, oh, there's loads of differences. I could say, well, not many, really. You're a female, I'm a male. You have a different color skin, I have a different color skin. You're born in the African subcontinent. I was born in London, but I have an Indian background. But apart from all those variations, at root, there's only two things in the universe. One is consciousness, other one is energy. Everything comes back to these two things. There's nothing else than that. Because I think like that for decades, it makes me see and think and analyze things differently than perhaps what most people would do.
Yeah.
I hope this suits the tone of your podcast.
No, it does. It does, and it's kind of like the stages of is it Piaget or Eric Erikson? When we have different stages, and then we have self-actualization. Self-actualization is kind of like, yeah, I've done all I could do in life, and there was nothing else to accomplish. So I'm not saying you're self-actualized, because I know there's so much coming out of you, Raj. There's just watching the surface at this point. But for you to get to a place of enlightenment that it comes down to consciousness and energy, most people either do not align with this thought process, or they know about it and they're struggling to align with this thought process, or they're kind of like dabbling a little bit in it, right? For you to actually be conscious enough to know that, hey, it comes down to these two things. Doesn't matter how you look, doesn't matter where you were born, where you're from, it doesn't matter your educational status, it doesn't matter your social economic status, doesn't matter who you know. It comes down to your consciousness and energy. That is what really makes the world evolve, who you're connected. You said God, the universe, Christ, Buddha, whoever is the energy that you're connected, right? It comes down to that energy. It comes down to your consciousness and connection to that energy. So I feel like people struggle with that. And for me, there was a time, this is just a confessional, there was a time that it felt like there was a disconnect between my religious practice and what I felt like was more. And it just not too long ago, I'm like, it's one and the same. It is one and the same, right? There's no calling things different things. It's just the way that I connect to it might be a little different from the way everybody else does, but it's my journey, it's my connection. And I think that's where some people struggle because they feel like it's like an outside experience, except it is not. It's what you are currently doing, like you're saying. You're taking a
That's right.
breath.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think, everybody has to kind of think it through for themselves. And there are some people
Right.
who say, oh, I don't want to study all that stuff. It's too complicated. It's way over my head. I'm not trained as a yogi or a metaphysician or a philosopher or even a psychologist. But you don't need to be. With this method, you don't need to do any of that. All you need to do is just follow the simple practice that we've engineered, and you'll get the benefit. It's as simple as that. Join the hoop.
Keep it
Yeah.
simple. How long do we have to do this?
We can
Raj?
we can do it for a minute. I'll talk you through it, and you'll see
Okay.
what happens.
Everybody has a minute in their time. We have 24 hours in a day.
There we go. So I'll walk you through the kind of short version of it just to help you dial it in, and then you can explain how you feel. I'll talk you through it. Okay. So first of all, what we do, Dongsit, is we check the nostril flow. So first, block your left nostril and breathe out once through your right, and then block the other nostril and breathe out the other nostril. So block. Are they equal or are they a bit?
No, I'm overthinking.
Equal. Perfect. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say you feel right now? Like 1 being you feel terrible, 10 meaning you feel amazing. Where would you say you feel?
I would say about an 8.
Okay, very good. And this method, okay, what you're going to do is have your chin more or less parallel to the ground and your spine fairly straight. So you're nice and relaxed. Okay. And you're going to breathe in 3 parts through the nose and then 3 parts out of the mouth. So it's like this. Do you want to try that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so good. So on the exhalation through the mouth, your mouth has to be a little open a bit wider, and it's like a ha 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 sound, but without the vocal cords. Exactly. Yeah, there's a bit of an elongation on the third exhale. So. Good. That's much better. All right, stop there. That's good. Very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it for a minute together. Okay. And keep your eyes closed and I'll talk you through it. All right. So relax. Don't force anything. Don't try to race. It's not a race. You're not competing. Just be completely relaxed. Okay. 3, 2, 1, and go. Okay. Keep your eyes closed and just relax. and observe and feel what's happening within. And just relax. Keeping your eyes closed. Tell me, Dongsit, what do you feel and sense right now?
I feel a lightness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like lightness in my head and in my chest.
What else?
It's just I feel the lightness. I'm not preoccupied with anything. I'm present.
Very good.
Yeah.
Does that lightness feel pleasant for you?
It does.
Do you feel any cool sensations around your sinuses, your temples?
Yes.
You do? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. About the top of your head, around your body anywhere?
Yeah, I feel it like towards my crown. I feel it mostly in my head region. I don't feel it in my chest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Have you noticed your heart rate slow down a bit?
It's completely like relaxed.
Yeah. Does that feel pleasant for you?
It is pleasant.
And that monkey mind sort of chatter, that mental chatter that most of us have in this busy world, has that reduced a bit?
I don't hear it.
Completely, is it?
That's why I'm laughing. It's, no chatter. Just like, it feels like floating over a deep blue ocean with blue skies over me. So there's this coolness that, it's taking away the reds and the orange, which is the activity for me.
See.
Yeah.
So the monkey mind chatter has kind of completely gone to sleep, shall we say?
Yeah.
Right. And do you feel an expansive mind beyond the body, like a growing sense of awareness beyond the flesh and bone?
I had a vision that I kind of like brushed away quickly because I was trying to kind of like figure out my senses. It was kind of galactic in nature. It's coming back in line with the blues. I see like stars, like a galaxy of stars, kind of like twinkling in the blues, like kind of like floating. Yeah.
Why are you laughing so much?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting used to it. I'm trying to get used to. I'm getting used to it. Yeah, I'm getting used to it. It's not completely unfamiliar, but I'm welcoming.
Yes. Absolutely. You mentioned you felt an 8 out of 10 earlier, Dongsit. What do you feel now?
I'm at a 10. In this moment,
You feel a 10? Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And considering that it only took you 60 seconds to go from 8 to a 10, how surprised are you at how quickly this worked?
I think that's why I'm laughing.
If you could use a surprise scale to say 1, you're not surprised, but 10 is you're very surprised, where would you put it?
About 10.
And is this quicker than what you've experienced before? Yeah. Normally when you do your practices, how long does it take you to get to this state?
10 to 12 minutes.
10 to 12 minutes. You can see why especially in the busy world where people say, I don't have 10 minutes to sit quietly. They have 1 minute to sit quietly. Yeah. Busy executives, lawyers, actors, in between shoots on a film, they have to retake a shot again and again sometimes because it goes wrong. So when they do this with us for a minute, they can refocus, get back into flow state, and, self-regulate quickly. There we go. Okay, you can open your eyes now. Yeah.
I feel like taking a nap.
Yeah.
I feel like just taking a nap, just...
Now you see, as a nurse, yourself being a nurse, you can see how this works with insomnia, people with insomnia. They're happy to fall asleep, gladly. So what you've done in a very short time, you've got into flow state, you're in focus, and it feels genuinely positive. It's very difficult to have intrusive negative thoughts come up in this state.
Yeah.
See? So that's why it's working so well for corporates, people, busy parents, executives, directors, all kinds of people.
Amazing. Amazing. Wow. Okay. So, wow. I sound different.
You've got a higher octave in your voice, hitting those higher vibes.
I feel different. Is it me or do I sound different?
What happens is when you release these hormones from your brain into your blood, it alters your physiology.
Whoa.
As a nurse, you've been practicing nursing for, was it 15, 20 years? Yeah. What do you think about something like this for your patients? Like, do you see how quickly and easily it would be to manage their states of mind, mood, energy?
Absolutely. Now that I've tried it and I feel it, it's easy to coach somebody through it. I mean, somebody who's willing. There's always the willingness aspect of things, even for my students. They manage a lot. I have the blessing, and I'm grateful for it. I'm so grateful that I'm able to be in a position to support a lot of the students that I support. Most of them are balancing a family, a career, and going back to school. And it's not easy being an adult learner, and it comes with a lot of anxiety and angst. So I'm grateful that I'm able to at least have something that I can add to the few things I use to kind of like help them recenter and calm down in their practice. So this feels great. I feel like I'm so monotone right now.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I feel like I'm speaking in slow motion.
You know, it's funny you say that, Dumsit, because when you're in flow state, they also call it mind and heart coherence. So you get in alignment and you feel effortlessly in a positive state of flow. People also call it bullet time from the Matrix films because you have that slow motion and everything morphs according to your thoughts in that neuroplastic state.
I feel like I'm speaking in slow motion, but it's great. It's good. So yeah. Wow. Incredible.
And that was just 60 seconds. You have to remember, when we coach clients, it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Imagine if you did this for 7 minutes, what would happen to you?
It might have the equivalent of anesthesia. Have you ever seen somebody counting down when they're getting, something injected and they just knock out? I feel like maybe that could happen where it's like a complete out-of-body experience. It's scary, but it sounds very interesting and exciting all at the same time. That was an awesome experience. That was good. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Oh my goodness, this was great. What are you leaving our audience with, our listeners? What is your final golden gem or nugget?
Oh, we're looking to teach more people this very simple method, which is natural. There's no side effects. So we want people to implement this into their daily routine, let's say 2 to 3 times per day for 2 to 3 minutes each time. So by doing something simple like this, simple, elegant, easy to remember, right, is 3 in, 3 out. It's nothing complicated like some box breathing techniques or some other variations. They'll say breathe in for 6, hold for 12, breathe out for 8, and then hold for 20. People don't do it. If it's too complicated, people just don't do it. But this, if you can count to 3, you can do it. 3 in, 3 out. 1, 2, 3. 3 out. 3 in, 3 out. 3 in, 3 out. So I would say we'd like to help encourage people to tap into their own power, because when you do this, you recharge your immune system and your nervous system. I have not been to a doctor for 20 years. You as a nurse, you probably don't like to hear that, but
well, not that I don't like to hear that. It's great that you're healthy. However, just checking in every now and again doesn't hurt.
True.
I mean, you're healthy. You've done the practice, right? So every now and again checking in, you don't even have to do it yearly. We recommend yearly. However, you can maybe do once every 2 years. Just, you're aligning yourself properly. You are the mechanic. So, but just checking.
I agree with you. My doctor's receptionist called me up, said, you're not on the list. You don't exist for the doctor. I said, okay, but the doctor's angry with you because he's never seen you, And then I said to her, look, I'm vegetarian, for 25 years. I do yoga, meditation. I've not taken any medicine for 20 years. I've not had an MRI, an X-ray, or an ultrasound, or been to a hospital for 20 years. And she said she would laugh and say, if I knew what you knew, I also wouldn't go to the doctor either. So, but it's something where people can tap into their own energy and their own power and take back their power and start to enhance their own health and stop wasting too much time, energy, and emotional worry with too much medicines and over-reliance on tests and diagnostics, because a lot of that can just make you feel anxious rather than make you feel at peace with yourself. So we're trying to help people sort of, have a new relationship with their own breath.
I definitely have, and I'm going to definitely use this. If it's a shorter time and that happened, I'm going to definitely use it again throughout my day today. Just when I feel like those wires are coming straight, frayed a little bit. Well, oh my goodness, this was incredible. Thank you so much, Raj. So thank you, everybody, for listening. What we are going to do is that we are going to include everything Raj in the show notes. And also, if you're interested in trying out this method, there's going to be a link how you can access it and try it out. And if you want to be coached by Raj, there's also going to be information on that. Everything that is connected to this awesome human will be included in the show notes so you can reach him and benefit from it. We all can benefit from healing ourselves. We have the power to do it. If you have ever been remotely curious, great curiosity, go after it. Start small, and this very breathing exercise is the smallest there is, right? Start small. Breathe in, recenter yourself slowly. Rome was not built in a day. Every step begins with a journey. I can go on and on. Start somewhere. Society needs you. We need you. Please take care of yourself. Thank you so much for being here, Raj. I'm so grateful.
You're very welcome, Adonsit. And if anyone wants to, find out more, feel free to, see keepfitkingdom.com, ask any questions. I'm more than happy to help. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Thank you, Raj.
Thanks for tuning in to Unshelling Medicine Podcast. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Altruistic Scribe on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We share additional tips, updates, and health-related content that you won't want to miss. Have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us at altruisticscribeco.com. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and tackle the health topics that matter most to you. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.